A recent spate of Judicial Conduct Tribunals probing allegations against judges underway, and some still looming, has posed the question of whether there's a crisis in the judiciary or if an era of accountability has been ushered in. SABC News senior reporter Canny Maphanga is here to talk to us about this. Canny, thank you so much. And I promise the viewers, it's not one person. So at least now they see us together, because a number of people say we look so much alike that they always wonder if it's the same person. So I hope those people are answered. But let's talk about this process. I mean, it's quite an important one, and especially because in recent times we've seen this debate as to who holds judges accountable, who makes sure that what they do is also above scrutiny, and they themselves are subject to some of the processes. Let's talk about, firstly, how critical is this process in our democracy?
Well, thank you so much, Bongiwe, for your time. The independence of the judiciary is critical to our democracy and our constitution, and that is articulated in the separation of powers principle. You get your legislature, your executive, and the judiciary. What is unique about the judiciary is that they're not elected and they have to act independently, which is where you see the heart of these tribunals rather than these complaints. Now, if we look at, for example, there are quite a number of judges that are appearing before tribunals, and we've already seen the impeachment of 2 judges, the first time we've seen that since the dawn of democracy. But if we look at, for example, Judge Makubele, suspended Judge Makubele, her complaint, that deals with a complaint by Unite Behind, which alleges that she was both a judge and a chair of a state-owned entity, that is PRASA. Now, if we look at the scenario, the conflict of interest is quite glaring if it is found to be true, if it's found that that misconduct did take place. Because Judge Makubele would be heading to the Gauteng Division of the High Court, which is the heart of administrative matters in the country. It's highly unlikely that a matter involving SOEs wouldn't come into that court. Now, how can you trust the judiciary or trust the decision or determination if a judge with that conflict presides over that matter? A similar example could be given with Judge Mutata's case. You have a judge on the bench which has a conviction of driving under the influence. Now, God forbid you appear before a court to answer for such a misdeed yourself as a citizen, but you have a member of the bench with the exact same conviction. I mean, how do you trust an institution that has those kind of misconduct allegations against the bench? So it erodes the public trust, and you need that. You need people to believe in those institutions for them to exist, as well as to uphold the rule of law in the country. And also, I suppose, one of the other things that it also adds another layer into the accountability conversation, and that is a layer to members of the public who are saying that, are they above scrutiny, are they not? So certainly now it does look like if I do have some kind of a complaint against a judge, I can actually lay that complaint and it can receive some attention. Well, I think you now can see that there are mechanisms in place to ensure that judges are held accountable. It would be no different to an individual going to a disciplinary proceeding. I think the flaws which exist now is the length in which it takes to hold a judge that may have quote-unquote misbehaved accountable. So you've seen with Executive Director of CASAC, Lawson Naidoo, articulating that matters of this nature should not be taking over a decade to complete. So now what we're seeing, because obviously they're all coming at the same time now, and you know the public is wondering, you know, are we seeing a crisis? No, I think it's better to view it as a period or an era of accountability for judges, which is long overdue, because like many individuals, or many professions rather, they are fallible and they can make errors, and where those errors are made and complaints are made to the JSC, that process must ensure that the Constitution is vindicated and that they are held accountable.
And let's then, I mean, talk about this particular issue, because the length of time is something that also came again when we saw that, you know, that matter being finalized even in Parliament around Judge Mutata, around, you know, Judge John Kloppe, around the fact that this length of time also, you know, in itself erodes some of the public trust, because they look at the processes here and the mechanisms that are put in place to ensure accountability. But if these particular mechanisms are taking a length of time, do we now see that as, one, could argue, a possible failure, or two, is it telling us that we were on untested waters and by now some of the systems need to be relooked?
I think the Judge Mutakda matter specifically clarified the flaws that were detected in the JSC processes, that is in the exercising of its mandate to hold judges accountable. So now with these upcoming matters and these matters that are still currently underway, we have that clarity surrounding some issues. But remember, the tribunal, which is the body that is tasked with investigating whether impeachable conduct has taken place, that is not a court of law. That is simply an inquiry. So it leaves space for those findings to be challenged. It leaves space for courts to intervene on that matter. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the JC process itself and the legislation that governs the disciplining of judges for that process to go ahead smoothly. Of course, it's not a small issue that you're dealing with. You're dealing with a judge losing their entire judicial career. Because remember, when you remove from office, you lose that status, the title, and the benefits of being a judge. So it is expected that in certain instances, like we've seen in the past, a lot of these processes have been delayed by litigation and incorrect findings, etc. So a lot of it is working on the JSC process itself and the legislation that governs the disciplining of judges.